All right, let's get it popping. Meet the mess. That's going to be me because, I don't think anybody on this call knows who I am. So my name is Amber Wallin. I am a yoga instructor in Chicago, but I'm also an actor, an improviser, a podcaster. In the before times, before the pandemic, I was basically a yoga studio manager by day and then an actor at Second City and the Annoyance Theater by night. And so obviously when everything happened, we all had to sort of put our lives back together. So I dove headfirst into getting my yoga business back up and running. Hot Mess Yoga has been with me for the past 3 years, but I really just fully invested in myself in 2020. So I'm here in this like new version of myself, and my personal SANKALPA is I relieve stress through laughter. That's not something that I say every single day, but that is just the essence of who I am if I had to describe it in a sentence. And I remember Ross and I were talking about like, well, what, you have this like medical doctor on this team of panelists, like, why am I being invited to this chat? But I feel that everything I do, I want to do and be blackened and whole, and that is Black history. So Audre Lorde, I'm not that smart. Audre Lorde said that, and so I'm just here to share my like biggest, blackest, and most whole self with all of you today. So thank you for having me, first and foremost. Let's reflect a little bit. We're going to get to know each other. So this is a yoga teacher, Barry Ristman. I follow her work and go to a lot of her workshops. She's very great. Follow her on Instagram and all that good stuff. But she always asks, especially with this past year, in a world where everything is constantly changing, what doesn't change? So I just want you to think about that for a second. I'd like a couple minutes for you, like a couple as in literally 2 minutes for you to just write down 3 things that don't change. I know last year I was laid off from a studio. I was a manager and laid off from my space and things like that. But what doesn't change? And what or who grounds you when you get disconnected? What or who grounds you? So let's do 2 minutes of just reflecting on that question, and then I'm going to ask a couple people to chat or unmute yourself because I'd like to hear that. Also, full transparency, my dog just snored. That's good. That means he's sleeping. But if you hear him pop off, I got our backs. Don't y'all worry about a thing, okay? Treats. So in a world where everything is changing, who runs our country is changing, our jobs are changing, our relationships are changing, what doesn't change? And what grounds us when we lose ourselves? Okay, we've had a little bit of time to think. I would love to, I can see all of you in a grid now, so I would love to hear from anybody who would like to share. Just know that I will still be spotlighted here, so you're not going to pop up on somebody's recording later. Oh, yes, yes, Adam. Oh, hey, Adam. Oh, sorry, Adam. Yes.
Oh, hi, that was a complete accident, but I'm so excited to be here and hear what you had to say. But I really like this question because I guess the thing that doesn't change is your ability to exist and be in the moment and still have gratitude for certain things that happen or, that you still get to experience. So sometimes it's a new album or a new song from an artist you don't expect to drop something, or a new movie or a new book that you didn't have access to before. So I guess the ability to literally live in the moment and have a lot of gratitude to just exist during these changing times that are obviously growing is something that never changes.
Thank you for sharing that, Adam. Melissa just gave you a heart as well. That's so true because it's so simple. It'll be just like a plant or a new song. God, Jasmine Sullivan just brought us out of the gutter this year. But those are the things that really bring us back. And I'm sorry, Adam, I'm really being snarky. I'll tell you why later. But I want to thank you for sharing. Does anybody else want to share? Maybe just one more. I know, Evelyn, you talked a little bit about your faith and your love of God and God's love for you. You can expound upon that, or I can hear from somebody else. And I will wait, y'all. I used to be a high school teacher. We can do this all day.
Well, hi, it's Evelyn, and I certainly want to thank you for your presentation and your energy that you're bringing today. Your excitement makes me excited, and that's really good. Yes, it does. And of course, I'm spiritual, and I know that there are a lot of things that are changing in our world or in and around us. And one thing that I know for sure is that the love of God has not changed towards us. Now, I don't want to inflict that upon anyone,
Of course.
but that's just my personal view. And I thank you so much for allowing me to share that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that faith and spirituality, while it can be ostracizing for some, it really I want to thank you for boldly saying that in your experience, it has grounded you and it makes up who you are. And that is important and there's value in that. So thank you, Evelyn, so much for sharing. Let's get back into it because I want y'all to keep that what grounds you when everything is chaotic top of mind, because even if you have never done, downward facing dog or Ekapada, Rajakapatasana, anything like that, you're doing the yoga when you find something that brings you back, and lets you find some refuge. So I love to do like a quick story time about me, because I know I just gave a opener about what I currently do, but I want to do a little personal share about when I was a kid and where I first learned how to start to reclaim my narrative. As you can see here in quotes, it says, "I want to be a slave." I'm going to give y'all some real talk about what happened. So when I was a kid, maybe in first or second grade, I'm originally from Georgia, so Georgia public schools. I want you to do with that what you'd like. I had a teacher, during Black History Month say, hey, y'all, today we're going to talk about this conductor, this pioneer of this underground railroad. And she just led this charge of leading workers to better work in a different region of the country. And these people built the foundations of America, and we have so much to celebrate about these workers, blah, 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 all of this rhetoric, of course. And so little Amber, I was like, tell me more about these workers, girl. And so I went home and told my mom, I was like, Mom, like, girl, I want to be a slave. Like, it's going to be exciting. And she was like, what? Well, what are you talking about? I was like, well, our teacher at school told us that these workers, they were all Black people and they were chosen to build the foundations of America. And I want to do that. And obviously she talked to me about, we all know, I don't have to do 400 years of injustices for anybody here. And so I was obviously mortified and traumatized that this narrative of who I am and my ancestors and my descendants was so skewed in a way, and there wasn't a balance of storytelling with that lesson. And so I think I internalized at a very young age that like how we tell stories of ourselves has to belong to ourselves and has to be shared by us. And us can mean any community. I know the Center on Halsted knows community, and there is so much importance in that, and how we have to not only own that narrative, but own it wholly. And so I have found that my yoga helps me learn more about myself, more about my descendants, so that, I won't aspire to be the manager at Slaves R Us anymore. So yoga was my homecoming to all of this. And also just as somebody who grew up as a cisgender woman, in a lot of ways, my body has not been my own, and I will spare you all of the details of that. So yoga and getting back into my body and reclaiming my story and reclaiming my physical body was just all around a huge homecoming and a space of refuge, which is why it just landed with me so much. And it reminded me that I am allowed to take up space. And not only am I allowed to take up space, sort of, that's just like the minimum of where yoga is, but people want me to take up space. Like, people thrive when I choose to take up space. So it's for me, it started with the four corners of my mat and then expanded to like, if I can conquer this 2x4 area, I can find my way into so many other rooms. So that is where the power is in yoga, and that's why yoga is for everyone. And it led me to my Sankalpa, my big vow, and who I'm meant to be. And I want to also say that yoga, like, it's no secret, yoga has been completely commodified, you know, like most things. We all live in America, and it's very important for me to recognize when I am getting disconnected from myself, that there is a $9 billion beauty industry dedicated to telling me that that hairy armpit that you see is ugly. And that's a lot of money that goes into that. There's so much that especially as an actor, the roles that I am, the boxes that I am put in, and the things I'm typecasted for. Like, I think last week my agent sent me like, they want you to read for a mom. I was like, they want me to read for a mom? Like, I've never seen a script where the mom had like a shaved head and a nose ring, and it's shocking because it's 2021. So every time I sort of am over analyzing my body and not feeling comfortable in that space, I just have to remind myself that like billions of dollars have been pumped into telling me that little black girls are ugly, and that's just not true. And I put Butt Fenty right here because I'm not sure how familiar y'all are with, you know, Rihanna, Robin Fenty, who has made she's a lingerie mogul at this point. Girl, drop an album already, but she's a lingerie mogul right now. And she has, if you've ever seen any of these Savage X Fenty commercials, they have people with real bodies telling stories of how they feel sexy and pleasure for the first time ever. And she is now a billionaire because of that. So she is proof that people that look like me are marketable, that people that look like you are marketable, and I don't have to aspire to whiteness, and I don't have to aspire to skinniness to feel valued and show up in this world. So I just want to remind everybody that anytime, because we are all, like, even now where I feel super comfortable in my body, I obviously still have my days, and I just have to keep reminding myself, like, there are billions of dollars dedicated for me to feel like complete crap, and I will not let them win that battle today. So that's just a little bit of who I am and where I'm coming from, and I'm hoping that even you're starting to think about your body in the way that, like, we all have the same parts. Like, we all have this funny bone in our femur and our tibula. They're just different ratios is how I really like to think about it. So let's talk a little bit about the actual Sankalpa. I'm going to have y'all interact with me in a minute as well. A Sankalpa, this is the yoga part, is just simply a vow, a commitment we make as a cornerstone to support our highest truth. So our mantra. So even when I get a script as an actor, for those of you who are not actors, you might get a script at 9 a.m. and they want you to audition for it at noon. So I'm not going to remember pages worth of lines, but I will say to myself, okay, who is this person? What would their one word mantra be? As long as I know that, I'm just going to go into it and rock it. So I got a script for a mom. Is she like disheveled mom who wants her life back, or is she like soccer mom on it? Got the Lunchables. We're ready to go. She's got vegan snacks. Like, what's her energy? I'm just going to try to remember that and stay with that. So I want you to think a little bit about, like, I use character mantras in my acting work, but I want you to start to think a little bit about if you had to reduce everything that you do and what you embody into one short mantra, what would that mantra be? I've included a link here that I will give people later. And then what we will start to talk about is creating that mantra, even though it might evolve. And then how do we continue to water that mantra as we create it? And going back to yoga is for everybody, you know, back to Barry Risman, she tells us, she's like, there is a light in every single person, even people whose hearts are filled with hate. It's like, it's really sad that your daily mantra is, I will discriminate against people. Like, when I'm met with conflict in people's lives, I just say to myself, like, their mantra is just evolving. Their Sankalpa is evolving, and that has nothing to do with me. Our Sankalpas just don't mesh well together. So just remember that yoga is for everyone because we all have a story and we all need to connect back to that source. So just a quick, another interactive brain think for a second. Just think back to, we know now what grounds us when we come back. Maybe, excuse me, it's that gratitude and that presence that Adam was talking about, or maybe like Evelyn saying, it's your faith and your spirituality. I want us now to reduce that to just like a physical space. I know at the beginning of the pandemic, I was definitely somebody who had to go back to Georgia for like 5 weeks. And, you know, Georgia has all its problems, but like being back in my parents' home is a space that just reconnects me to come back. Maybe for you, that's, I have one of my cousins, he's just like, the bathroom is my space. Like, he grew up in a very chaotic household with multiple siblings. And he was like, I knew if I was in the bathroom and I locked the door, that was my physical space. So even now when he's having a panic attack, I'll call him and I'm like, are you in the bathroom? He's like, yep. So I want you to think really quickly about what that physical space is for you and what will always be true of that space. So let's take, again, just 2 quick minutes for you to write down what that physical space is. That space can be Disney World, you know. Disney World is an amazing place. And what will always be true about that space. Let's see, we got some. Oh, yes. Cool. 2 minutes. Thank you, Evelyn. I see some people starting to type in the chat. You are welcome to type in the chat, or at 10:40, I'll just like, you can do the participants and then hand raise at the bottom. I can call on some people because, you know, I like to talk, if that wasn't clear. Come out of this for a second and just, I'd love to hear somebody say what their physical space is and then what's always true about that space. So my mama's house is my physical space. What's always true? There's always some fried food happening in that space. Now, we can talk later about good or bad, but it's just, I know so intimately the smell of my parents' house, and it's just going to be filled with joy for all 5 senses. Okay, now somebody else give me what their space is and what's true about it.
This might be unusual, but for me, my space would be riding my bike along Lakefront Path, because it's the place where I feel like centered and like where I like feel like I'm with nature, but also like it's the place where I can give my thoughts like give them the time. And yeah, I would say it's an odd maybe place, but that's like my place.
I don't think it's odd at all. I think a lot of people will definitely resonate with that. Just like that fresh air filling up your lungs where you can just clear your head. Thank you for that. Maybe one more? Angela, I see you.
Yeah, so for me, I think, you know, immediately 2 things came to mind. One is my yoga mat, and that's just a place where I just check in with myself every day, kind of, you know, emotional, energetic temperature reading, so to speak. And but also kind of similar to the person who shared right before me, anywhere where I can do like a walking path or a hike where there's trees. There's something about the trees to me that just feel incredibly grounding, and just as a reminder of how long they've been there, and you know how much crap they've sort of witnessed through. And so it's just a place for me to kind of reconnect that the crap du jour kind of comes and goes, you know. And so that's just very refreshing and grounding for me.
Yes, thank you. Outdoors is just like, it's not me, but the yoga mat. I definitely vibe, but I know that my husband's a huge hiker, so, which, you know, I'm out there just barely hanging on. But it really does just help us just get back to like, wow, these things have been here for thousands of years. So if they can survive and thrive, like, I got this. Thanks, y'all, for that. Let's keep it going, because I just do want us to think about those things as we start to create our own SANKALPAs, which is what we're going to get into. So I know that today is just like day one. You're not going to walk away from this conversation knowing like, I know exactly who I am, existential crisis solved, but I do just would love to start the beginnings of you creating your own SANKALPA. So in the yoga community, we have it here. I basically have a basic sentence structure, and then I have some examples of SANKALPAs that people have. So it just starts with a basic I. It could be a I am or I do something. To, through, with, community, or state. So obviously all of y'all can read. I don't know why I just read that out. But just take a moment to read all of these for yourselves and start to already think about, a list of verbs that would take that space for you. Right. Oh, I know. Well, come here. Here we go, y'all. Here we go. This is my SANKALPA. I relieve stress. Come here. Get it over here. Okay, well, we've all been disabled by that, so we're going to keep on going. Come on, Amazon. So sometimes what it helps me to think a little bit about other people's SANKALPAs sometimes, and then be like, okay, I know so intimately what RuPaul's SANKALPA or Toni Morrison's SANKALPA or Meg or Issa's SANKALPA would be, and that's going to help me sort of create my own. I'd love if somebody would just type in the chat one of these SANKALPAs for this, like whichever figure you choose, just like one example. Just humor me about what you think their SANKALPA would be. Anyone? Maybe just one of these icons, and what would their daily mantra be? Oh, I see here. Issa. Oh, Toni Morrison. I write to heal. I love that. Megan will be. There are a multitude of ways to feel and be attractive. I bring so much laughter and joy to people through my work, Issa. RuPaul, I help others love themselves through loving myself. Yes, y'all. I love these. And even though that all of these incredible icons have like money now and they've reached a level of fame, like it all just goes back to that. And we all have a SANKALPA and we all have a narrative to reclaim. So now I want us to take 3 minutes, and I will mute so crazy doesn't happen. 3 minutes to start the beginning makings of your individual SANKALPA. And as you're creating these, I want to challenge you to make them as specific as possible. So instead of saying like, I do this for my life, just get really grounded, like my family, my partner, my community. All right, let's see if anybody wants to be brave, maybe somebody we haven't heard from, real teacher style. If anybody would want to be brave and sort of start to share the beginnings of the makings of their SANKALPA, I would love that.
Mine's not in its totally finished form yet. So, but something along the lines of, I'm a powerful force for collective liberation and joy. Through, I'm not sure yet, my yoga practice, teaching, the work that I do. I was still working on it, but that's my starting point.
I think that's an amazing starting point, and I think that's something that you can wake up and say every day. And when something is not aligned with that liberation and joy, it's so much easier to be like, is it joyful? Is it liberating? I can't be a part of it. So thank you for sharing that. Maybe 2 more?
I'm happy to go. Again, it's also not in a completed format, but it really does shape how I approach most things in life. I build up myself so that I may help build a better world for our young people.
I love that. And I think that's so powerful, because building and developing is something that's just constantly ongoing. So I really like that. And I'd love if you just like sort of stuck with that. Because it is so connected to like not only yourself, but to others. And that's why we're all here. When we are our most whole selves, we can just let that radiate to other people. Maybe one more. Monica?
Put one in the chat.
Oh. Evelyn, if you're comfortable, I'm going to read yours. I'm a positive force for others by understanding that we are all different. My colleagues, my church family, and all I encounter are benefiting from the positive energy that I bring. And I love that one as well, because that positive energy that you bring is, I'm always thinking about when something is misaligned or doesn't align. I can do a self-check of myself of like, will I actually be bringing positive energy to this space? Not today. So let me either like sit aside, and it has nothing to do, you know, I think the pandemic really taught all of us that we don't even have to make excuses to get out of things anymore. It could just be like, hey, y'all, I'm tired. I can't do it tonight. Literally me last night, I was just eating a tray full of lemon tarts. I had no excuse. I was like, I just don't feel like hanging with y'all. And I knew it was because I wouldn't be able to bring that positive energy. So just checking ourselves on what am I contributing, and am I contributing it at its most full self, is essentially what a Sankalpa is. And I want to thank all of you for sharing your Sankalpas that are just, you know, little seeds right now. So as I just said a moment ago, when we have reclaimed our narrative, we're no longer wanting to be a little slave girl because we've figured out who we are. It's so easy to start tuning out things that people have to say. It's been a journey for me, of course, but it's been much easier. These are all things that I have heard, that things that have been directly said to me or around me when I started my yoga journey, which for me was my big homecoming, my big just like discovery and unlock of myself. And you know, going back to why I'm here today is because if I would have just listened to those, like, isn't yoga for white people thing? There's no way that's possible, because we all have a story and we all have a Sankalpa. So how can it be that this sacred practice that wasn't even created by white people is just for white people? That's just inherently untrue. And I don't have to argue with people about that. I can just say, like, no, it's not. I relieve stress through laughter, and this is helping me relieve stress, and that's it. And on the opposite side of that, I have an example here. So at my old yoga studio, we were able to clean for, 90 minutes in order to get a discounted membership. Now, I had been a part of that team several years ago, but everybody at the yoga studio sort of knew me as a yoga instructor and then a yoga manager. And one time I came into the space, and a new teacher who had never met me was like, "Oh, are you here to clean?" And I was just like, "What are you new here? I'm the manager of the studio. Like, how did you not know that?" And obviously I had a very not heated conversation with her about it. Just like, here's the real tea. I manage the space. My name is Amber. I'm definitely someone you should know and somebody who wants to facilitate your growth. And I'm here to help relieve your stress. So, and that kind of starts with me relieving my stress of what you just said. So let's unpack it. And it was a very healing conversation, and me and that person are still friends to this day, but like that could have gone left really easily. And I'm not saying that it is okay to have righteous anger, especially when it's like, I'm never gonna see you again. I could just cuss you out and move on with my life. But sometimes when we're in those environments where I'm just like, I have to work with you. So let me just, if it's not, I need to relieve stress or make a joke here, because that's just what I do and who I am. So just a quick way to sort of help remind us all how that Sankalpa and that mantra can ground us, because there's no way I'm gonna let this stranger get me disconnected from my source. So now, we're assumably having our Sankalpa, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to use that. Like I just said, setting boundaries, not only setting boundaries, but knowing that your intuition is always right. I'm sure everyone on this call right now has been gaslit or told in some way that what their critique is of a situation, like, isn't really valid. And I'm here to tell you, like, that cannot be true because of your Sankalpa. So if my Sankalpa is to relieve stress through laughter, when I speak up, when something isn't doing that, it's valid. It has to be considered in the larger conversation of things. And I know it's so easy to doubt ourselves or be like, am I crazy? Am I the only person catching this? But even if I am, I'm here to relieve stress, and this is a stressor. So just know that whenever you're feeling that something is off, your body will tell you that. Like, I had a doctor's appointment last week that was something was off. And then I would talk to other people. They're like, yeah, other people have said that. Or we'll go to Yelp and be like, oh, everybody's lighting this restaurant up. Something was off. I wasn't wrong about that. So just know that you're going back to the yoga, the physical yoga asana, your body will tell you when something isn't right. That little fuzzy butterfly feeling in your stomach, and then just draw it, like, and let your Sankalpa just reaffirm that when something isn't right. my mom is always, laughing at me because she's like, you millennials will just quit every job that y'all get or whatever. But I'm like, and she'll be like, here we go. The work environment is toxic. And I'm just like, you can make fun of me all you want, but I am just at a space where I cannot have toxicity in my work environment, because I know when I show up to something, I give 1,000% of me into every project that I do. Even a little $5 yoga class, I want this to be an experience. And so if my manager or my direct superior is in conflict of that, I have to step aside. And as you can imagine, I've had like 17 jobs, but I have to step aside. And so quit your job is the takeaway of this workshop, I guess. I'm kidding. Another thing, when we talk about people's sankalpas and people's missions, it's so easy to be like, these are the people, even though we all have different sankalpas, even the three people who just spoke, my sankalpa vibes with y'all's sankalpa. Some people's sankalpa is, I want to make money to distribute that money specifically to my family. And that's okay. We're just not aligned. And so find people whose sankalpas work for you and avoid comparing your sankalpa to other people or thinking like my sankalpa isn't as vibrant as someone else's, because all of our sankalpas are just an amalgamation of all of our experiences. So there's no way they could be the same. And then lastly, prioritize watering your sankalpa. If you're somebody who is like, I'm dedicated and living by this, like almost hold yourself accountable for that. Like, so my yoga and my relief of stress, it grounds me, but my laughter grounds me as well. So even when I go out and walk my dog, I need to sort of find something that inspires me to make a joke. Like I actually try to do a daily journal of like, oh, if I was this character, how would I respond, and doing that. So I want you to think now, going back to that sankalpa that you're creating, you can just jot this down. What's one way you can water it? Starting to water it. Like a tangible action step that you can do every single day. It doesn't have to cost you money. How can you water that mission, that vow to yourself? Just a 30-second quick chat. You can keep that to yourself as well. So as we've got this sankalpa, we're going to find people whose sankalpa matches ours. We're going to start to water and give back to this mission and this vow. What happens is life happens. We're all human. Sometimes we don't really believe our sankalpa, or we're hard on ourselves. So I just want you to sort of fake it till you make it with that sankalpa. It really is just, it's like, I'm going to lean in and double down. If I'm going to be a comedy queen, I just gotta bring it. If my dog is gonna bark in the middle of a session and I'm the number one stress reliever, I'm not gonna let that stress me out. Now, will I cry about it on Thursday night like I always do? Of course. But right here, right now, I gotta just lean in and go with the flow, because that is building for me a habit of just living by that sankalpa. And people can start to see, like, especially now, people can smell right through when you're not living by what you're selling and bringing to other people. Like, it just, I mean, how many yoga poses and Instagram stories am I seeing somebody in like a handstand being like, my life is amazing. I'm like, girl, I know you. We talked the other night. You are falling apart, but go off telling people that a handstand will bring them enlightenment. You do that. But just, she's faking it till she makes it. And I can't even knock her hustle, right? So sort of just let that, just embody that. Like, I'm sure RuPaul has days where RuPaul's like, I'm not loving myself today, but we are never going to see that, because she leans in, they double down and make it a habit of excellence. Make space for rest, avoid overwatering. So, you just maybe made that action step that you're going to do. If you're doing it every day and it's killing you, make space to like, let me step away from it and always come back to it. Just create when you feel inspired is something I have been learning in my acting and comedy journey, because, in the before times, I'll hop in an Uber and somebody's like, oh, you're a comedian, tell me a joke. It's like, it actually doesn't work like that. I need to feel inspired. They're like, oh, do you know Kevin Hart? It's like, no. Do we look like we do? I wouldn't be in this Uber if I knew Kevin Hart. Probably not. He's not the only comedian. But just never feel encouraged to just like put on for people. Like, I'm going to create and manifest and live by this when I feel inspired. And when I'm not, I'm going to, charge my device, which is my body. And then share your, so you've created this Sankalpa, you're using and living by that Sankalpa, you're watering, things are balanced. And then I think is the goal where you start to share your journey. You start to lead presentations like this and let that spill over to people. You start being a space holder. I have really, before the pandemic, I had never taught a virtual yoga class in my life. I was the girl at the yoga studio with 75 people classes. I didn't have to advertise on Instagram because people knew what was up. They knew I could get your side butt in order. And now the pandemic was like, girl, so we all have to just sort of start to be vulnerable. I think the pandemic, it was horrible in so many ways, as we can all attest to. But it was really an ego check for me, for sure, about the work that I was doing, because I had this moment where I was like, okay, I've lost my job. I'm no longer the manager with 75 people classes. Thus, I am nothing. Like, how can I still share my gift with people? And that's just, again, not true. So find those spaces to share your story. Even something as simple as signing up for a storytelling class is a way to share your story. I just signed up for a teacher training, attending workshops like these. Just continue your education that helps you build and develop that Sankalpa. It would be the biggest thing I could say. And make your leadership sustainable. I'm not sure if we've heard of Adrienne Marie Brown, but she's incredible. She's rallies around pleasure activism and how we can make our activism something that we just enjoy doing, because this is my form of activism. I know that when this past summer, when the George Floyd protests and things like that were happening, I've been protesting for 10 years. So I'm like, I'm not getting out there with the new kids on the block. What I am going to do is get a team of Black yoga teachers together, and we're going to create Black Yoga Week, a space for us to breathe, and I'm going to hold that space. So I found a lot of pleasure in that. I found my lane at where my activism was still just as powerful. So we all just have different paths with that and how we can make it all our own. Yes. Amen, Gucci. Let the church say yes. Here, please. Pleasure and activism. Treats. So I want you, as a last slide before I take questions or just any responses to all of this. I've been talking so long. I want you to just write really quickly right now, one thing you can commit, one action that you can do that will water your Sankalpa. It could be something big or small. Maybe, you don't have to share, but maybe it's like, I need to break up with my partner. Like, that's just what it needs to be. It can be something. Ross is like, so whatever it is. Sorry, Ross, I had to call you out. But whatever it is, I need to cut my auntie off. I have one of my aunties, I love her to death, but I had to unfollow her on Facebook because it wasn't feeding the Sankalpa. Unfollowing 50 people on Facebook, whatever it is, or Instagram, write one action that will help you water your Sankalpa. And then you're going to hold yourself to that. So take about 30 seconds to a minute to write that action down and type it in the chat. I'm sorry, Ross. I had to. Okay. What's it going to be? It can be a small action. It can be a big action. But someone hit me with something. Oh, Natasha said remove social media apps from devices. Ooh, that's hard. Natasha, please tell me how that has not been feeding your Sankalpa and how it's got to that point.
I don't like social media. I used to have like all of them, and then now I'm just down to Instagram. And then even with that, I don't follow anyone that I know. I only follow things that are like pertinent with the news, or, maybe just like a couple activists that I follow or things like that. But I would see so many negative things. I do follow a couple of my spiritual leaders on my Instagram as well, but I would see so many negative things. And a couple of the things that I would see that would be so negative would be like women's body image and things of that nature. And I'm so happy that I've never subscribed to that. In my mind, I never thought like, oh, I need to be shaped like that. But then, you would see so many negative comments about people who, have a natural, beautiful shape. And when we don't augment our bodies, then we're not beautiful. And so I hated that. So I was like, oh, delete.
I'm so impressed by you. I wish I wasn't addicted, but I am 10 toes down in my social media. It's embarrassing. So I applaud you for that. And it's so wonderful that you have sort of created, like, this is not going to get into my bubble. This $9 billion beauty industry, it's not going to touch me. Even if I have to remove myself from the apps, it's not coming here. Thank you for that. Two more. Let's see, maybe Nicole or Allison or Melissa. You don't have to turn your camera on. This ain't that, but feel free to pop in the chat or.
I guess I'll go.
I know I kind of voluntold you.
Okay. So my name's Nicole, and I guess mine would be that I want to step aside when I'm like, one of the things that I want to work on myself is I want to, or what it is I want to constantly be working on myself. And one of the big things for me this year is like the dichotomy of like, life is, you know yourself best, but you also know yourself least. So it's just about self-understanding and self-awareness, and just making sure that I'm always like, whether it's my own perspective on things or from other people, like just making sure I'm stepping aside and always trying to look at things objectively as possible and not from like what I personally think. So.
For sure. What's maybe one way that you've been able to help yourself do that and become more self-aware, or one way you want to?
Oh no, I can't hear. Sorry.
Uh-oh, is it me? Oh, okay. I can hear you, Nicole.
Oh, hold on.
Take your time. This is what happens when I just call people out. It's like, I was dealing with life, Amber.
No, I'm sorry. I still don't even understand AirPods. Like, it's like, I'm sorry. It's like, I couldn't hear you, then I switched over to something else, but didn't pair to that. And so now I'm like, wait, am I talking or not?
You are not alone. I am here with you. You should have seen us 10 minutes before this call.
To something else. So yeah, so that's my thing, is just trying to figure out how I'm working through that, and just working on self-awareness, self-understanding, and just when and the way that I can water that is just making sure when something happens to myself or others, I step aside and I'm always thinking, okay, like, let me look at this from a place of just not in my own feelings or whatever. So trying to have an objective opinion and just listen to others and listen to myself with a little bit more compassion.
Yes. I love that. Your intuition is always right. Thank you so much, Nicole.
Yeah.
Allison?
Sorry about that little tech issue.
I won't. We don't even have enough time for me to talk about how horrible my whole underwear has been out on that freaking yoga class. It's a mess. But thank you for sharing. Allison, would you like to share maybe one way you're going to water and fill your SANKALPA?
Yeah, can you hear me okay? I was also having issues. Okay. Well, this is something I know it's so simple, but I realized how much it's really, really important that I have tried to notice every time my body gets agitated when I'm mentally struggling with something. So part of my SANKALPA was trying to be more present so that I can stop disconnecting from myself when something triggers me or bothers me. So I really, really want to keep focusing on watering myself through going back to my breath, whether that's like 5 times in a meeting at work or during like a social interaction, that it's okay to step back and breathe before I continue, so I don't lose myself or my connection with the people I'm around. Oh,
I love that. And it's so interesting because when we stay in those situations, other people feed off of that energy. I have been in a meeting crying and they're like, what? Why are you just step out? And they're like, I'm like, but no, I want to be here for everybody. They're like, you're clearly not. So just give yourself permission to be like, I'm going to step out and give myself some air and some water for 5 minutes. And it sounds like you're already doing that. Thank you so much, Allison.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank all of you for that time. Just really quickly, in conclusion, my Sankalpa is I relieve stress through laughter. So I hope that this was a stress reliever, and I got a couple of zingers in there. I was also just excited to my iPhone's Face ID barely let me log on today because they're like, an eyebrow? Like, well, who is this? So thank you for giving me a reason to put on makeup and deodorant and the things. And I just want a quick takeaway, just never apologize for the space you take up, because people want you to take up space. We all have a story that is uniquely ours, and we all have a Sankalpa. And yoga's for everyone, because yoga is our homecoming. It connects us back to the source. At this time, with the 30 seconds I have left, I would love any questions or comments, anything you got. Just hit me with your best shot.
Amber, who are some people that you look up to for like calm and peace that you kind of hold as, I don't want to say role models because that's a little bit like not what I'm thinking of, but like who do you take as their word as powerful when you are maybe at your most stressed and you kind of think, oh, how would they deal with being in this situation?
So I've never been stressed when a dog has been barking incessantly before. I'm about to just go full black mama on him. Okay. So Samantha Irby is, I'm not sure how familiar we are with Samantha Irby. She used to live in Chicago. She used to be Chicago based. And I think now she lives in Minnesota or Wisconsin with her wife. But she is one of my favorite authors. She wrote like meaty, wow, no, thank you. I subscribe to her blog. She's like one of the few people that still write a blog, and I'm just all in for it, where all she does is recap Judge Mathis episodes, and I'm just here for it. She's so authentically herself, and she's been through so much trauma and just bounced back from anything ever. So I would say she is who I look up to the most, because she was just able to still get up every morning and write for 15 minutes. And now that has become, not only has she gotten multiple books, she has a show coming out soon. And the best episodes of almost any satirical series that we've seen, she wrote it. I'm not sure if y'all saw Shrill, but with A.D. Bryant, but the pool party scene, she wrote that episode. So everything she does is just her most complete self, and so I fully aspire to be her. She also sort of is in that sort of like, I would describe like hot mess aesthetic, because there are people that are role models of mine, like a Michelle Obama, but that's just, Michelle Obama's energy is not my energy. Like, I don't aspire to like look the most pristine every day and, have arms of steel, which they are beautiful, but that level of cleanliness and polishedness is not something that resonates so much with me. I'm sort of like a come as you are kind of gal. So that really lands with me with Samantha Irby. Just, if you haven't read anything, I would read her text messages. Look her up, buy everything that she writes. She's incredible. Thank you for that question.
Awesome. Thank you.
And thank you, Angela. Angela. I'm sorry. Looking at thank you, Amber, for coming. Amber, this was amazing. I know we've been talking and preparing for this, but beyond anything we could have imagined. Hot Mess Yoga, again, everyone, if you don't know, now you know. And Amber, this was, are you willing to also, are your slides going to be available if anybody wanted to? Is that something we can talk about, or some parts of them?
Absolutely. I have a link to the slides. I can just post really quickly here in the chat, but absolutely. I'm also just like, unlike Natasha, addicted to my phone. So feel free to roll in my DMs anytime saying like, that was really powerful. Can we do a Zoom coffee just to like, let me pour my life onto you, whatever it is. Happy. I need to get Natasha boundaries, but I'm not there yet. Natasha, you're a queen. But yes, thank you for that.
Thank you again, Amber. Everyone, thank you for attending. I'm going to respect your time. It's 11:32. You all have an amazing day. We have our last event tomorrow. If you'd like to still meet with us, we will be together for our panel discussion tomorrow at 2 p.m. Thank you all. Take care. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.